the Casey dog and the Shirley dog. Why, they even got the Pacer dog, the Brooklyn dog, and the Jim dog. Can't forget the Shane dog, or the Joy dog, and the Monty dog. I like that fool. Then the Kia dog and the Braxton dog round things off. Why, they even got a kids menu too.
Loafing Dog, 208 East Chambers Street, Cleburne, Texas. Lunch, catering, or takeout, plus outdoor seating. Phone number is 817-556-1040.
This is Wilford Brimley. And don't forget, Loafing Dog won't give you diabetes.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
Serving Johnson County, Texas. JoCo Community Radio.
Yes.
Sound check.
Yeah. Sound check.
Check maybe one.
Good morning. It's a Wednesday morning, and welcome to Burleson JoCo Business Connection. I was trying to get the B out, and it became Burleson Business Connection. We have Cleburne candidates on today, so we're going to have this morning. We're going to have Frank Aguero. I did not want to mess that name up, and I was going to. He is running for place 4 on the City Cleburne Council City Council seat. And then later on, we'll have Ginger, who's running for school board. So how are you today, Frank?
Aside from the allergies, I'm good to go.
I don't know. It gives you a DJ voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome to Smooth Jazz Radio. This is Dr. Midnight.
So, Frank, what actually sparked your interest into running for city council?
I think like anyone else that moved in here, we started getting involved in the party, the Republican Party, and I was they were asking me on certain things, and I was researching, and I was looking at my own district, and I kind of just gravitated to, okay, the need is going to be in this district because like everywhere else, we've got this growth that's coming in, or that's actually in right now all over the place.
So in Cleburne, y'all have the place or the district is where y'all serve.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because in Burleson, you just choose a seat.
Yeah, it's at large.
And then Godly, it's the best 2. If there's 2 seats open, it's the best 2 out of the 5 that are running. Okay, so you actually live in that section of that district that you are going to be representing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. It's really, it has been kind of cool hearing all the different ways things are done and understanding it, because I think that's a big thing that a lot of us, we don't quite grasp. Or if we understand what's going on in maybe our school district, our city council, because our city council is the same way. It's at large. So they can just choose a spot. They don't have to live in a certain area to go there. Maybe we should start going to that. Who knows? Because maybe then there'll be more vested interest in.
Exactly.
And look, this is where I personally live, and I need that interest to be focused on that. Wow. So, what are some things going on in the city that you would like to see either maybe focused on or maybe a little changed?
First off is, of course, the infrastructure. Within my district, there's actually streets that are still unpaved. There's individuals that have houses that aren't tied into the city water or sewer. And it's not, outside of Cleburne BFE.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a mile or two.
I was going to have you talk more into that. Okay.
Sorry, like I said,
That way everybody can hear you on the radio, especially since you're a little under the weather.
Yes, ma'am. It's not even a mile from City Hall.
Uh-huh.
And on this infrastructure, if we don't put our attention to it, it's like the sea. You don't turn your back on it. It's not going to be all right.
Right.
The other one is the inflation, and this is economy, and how it's going to affect all of us. I mean, you don't have to be, Ivy League, doctorate to understand that you're paying more for the same items you bought a year ago. When we look at local government, their spending, it's going to be also affected. So instead of $20 to $40 every time you go out, it might be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. So I want to dump on the if and when of, do we need it? Is it a luxury or is it a toy of the month?
Yes.
Especially for these next 2 years that this recession is going to hit us.
Right.
We were just having this conversation last night. When you talk about budgeting wants versus needs, and do you feel that Cleburne, the city in general, has gotten beyond the need versus want, or is it just a misbalance?
Right now, I think it's okay. But it's more of a question of efficiency. Because again of this growth and this tax revenue base has come in from that growth, we've got to be wary of people going, come the papa. We're going to spend some money. And again, the toy of the month and a luxury. And as far as the main focus of infrastructure, I want to focus on water. That has the whole deal that it can come back and be very costly. We look at, and again, I hate to diss my former hometown of Laredo. They're in the midst of a water crisis right now. For years, the city government has been trying to get out of the infrastructure business. They even privatized the utility, the water department, for a while. And the contractor, after I think it was 4 or 6 years, pretty much said, here's the keys, here's the paperwork, we're not making any money, deuces. And then government had to pay to transition to that private management, and then they had to pay to transition back. But they still kept the same mandate of, we're just going to maintain. And they kept experiencing the same growth that we are. And sum it up, this year they had one water line break that came to a chain reaction of water main breaks throughout the city. And the entire city was without water for almost a month.
Wow. And
now they're having to look at spending a lot of money to not only meet the need, but try and get ahead of it. I mean, nothing is off the table. They're looking at refinancing, the bonds, issuing out another bonds, dipping into, tax money, and raising the rates.
So the city of Cleburne, there's only 4 council members.
Yes, ma'am. And the mayor.
For it being our county seat, that's a very small amount. Do you find, and this is literally me not knowing because I don't live in Cleburne,
yes,
and so I want to understand it. Do you find that works well, having only 4 council members versus, let's say Burleson that has 6?
The majority of places where I live, it's been just kind of like Cleburne, and I think it works out better because you have people from the community that know what the needs are.
So why place 4?
Well, I think you missed that one.
Oh, sorry.
So
I had to use
there's
the ladies' room.
That's okay.
I had an emergency.
So they're not oh gosh, he has to live within that district of where he chose. So it has to be district 4.
It is right. So you're
because
4.
he lives in district 4.
Okay, so that's what I was looking on the city website, because it has the SDM.
It's been very interesting learning. That's what we were just discussing earlier. That it's been interesting kind of learning the different ways on how seats are not or are chosen and are not chosen, because
so the single member district 4 John Warren is the current city councilman, and he has been the city councilman for 22 years.
Over 20 years, yes.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's I mean, we've kind of been looking at the long running seats that have been in Burleson, the former mayor, which is, who is now gone. And this has been a hot topic of discussion across Johnson County is term limits.
Mhm.
How do you feel about term limits? And is this something that you will push for if elected?
Yes, we do need term limits. I think it would have to be with, again, right now, I don't see it maybe 1, 2, or 3, but term limits as far as elections. But it is enough so someone can come in and do whatever the people want. With Mr. Warren, I want to believe that, like you said before, a lot of people don't know who's in their district. But and I have the article right here. He said, "Well, I've done all this for his constituents. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
and I talked to people, and they're like, he hasn't done anything for me." So
It looks as though Derek Weathers, which is SMD 1, his seat is up. Is that correct?
yes, ma'am.
But it doesn't tell me when he was originally elected into that position. Do you know? There's no biography
I
on
think
him.
he's on his second.
He's on his
second or
second.
third.
his second or third term. Okay.
Yeah, he's unopposed, and so is the mayor.
Okay. And I'm not surprised that the mayor's
Right.
he's unopposed.
Yeah.
Scott's done a fairly good job. Again, it's coming from an outsider because I don't live in Cleburne. But from what I see, I think Scott's done
Right.
a pretty good job. I don't know Derek. I have no thoughts on that whatsoever. I'm just trying to I want to get a full feel of what's changing. Chris's seat is up because he's running for another office, obviously. And and Mike, it appears, has been serving for quite a long time. Mike Mann's been serving for quite a long time.
Yes.
So what are you finding? So when did you decide to throw your hat into this ring, and why now?
Like I was stating before, I was doing research for the party, and I started seeing some metrics that, to me, just didn't jive well. One of the things that they're trying to do with the city is, and this project of future land use, and as far as my district, a lot of people don't agree with it. What they want to do is put a transition, a bunch of houses, single, family houses that generate tax revenue with apartments. And I'm not against apartments. I'm actually for apartment, but it has to be. I want to take a page what you have here, where you're doing apartments with retail, with industry, because it benefits both. But a lot of people, including myself, that have seen this future land use, I mean, it kind of reeks of, I don't want it in my district. I don't want it in my neighborhood. Put it over there where it's out of the way.
Mhm.
And when government makes decisions like that, it doesn't go over very well. And that has the potential of burdening the entire city,
Mhm.
the entire taxpayers. They
Right,
have
not
to,
just the one district.
yes, ma'am.
So let's. Can you break that down for us a little bit? I mean, what is this over the future land use plan, which they updated that in September?
Mhm.
Is that when the major changes came that will affect your district, or was it something before that?
That's one of the many questions. I mean, I'm just going by common sense. I mean, look at the legal term of future. It means anything after written or said word. So as soon as they ink it, it might happen then. And you're talking about trying to piece together individual houses to build these apartments. And the logistics behind it are, to me, they're difficult. Just to piece all that together, and then that transition. And meanwhile, you have what was generating a tax revenue base. It's gone. And again, someone has to make up the difference. The rest of the taxpayers.
So it looks like they've got some mixed use to where
Mhm.
it's apartment living above retail shops.
Mhm.
Where exactly is that being considered to build compared to your district?
Well, in mine, again, because it's District 4, it includes part of downtown. They are trying to transition some of the downtown structures to have that kind of use. So that's where that's going. But in the bigger picture, just taking a big chunk of houses and let's hope for the best. That's where a lot of the constituents have problems with, and they have concerns.
So, so how are the people in your district voicing their opinions? Are they coming to city council? Are they talking with the current city councilman for District 4? And if so, what kind of feedback are they getting? Is communication seem to be open?
In all honesty, and I'll tell you from my experience, there's no callback and there's no answering for emails. I've had several instances, where I had concerns and he never responded. Some of these other residents pretty much had the same experience.
Are the people coming out to the council meetings and speaking up? Are they taking the opportunity to voice their concerns during an open meeting?
Some of them have, but for that and others. But if you look at their use, I think a lot more people are going online and seeing these council meetings. I mean, I've been through several of them, and oh my gosh, 4 or 5 hours. They're extremely long. It's the way I see it, and that's another issue that I want to address. It's nuanced. It's like a dance. People go up and they're like, okay, I'm going to try and say something to you about my concerns and not try and offend anybody. And hopefully you will answer my questions. And sometimes it's just gibberish. The Texas open meetings, politically correct, and, the cancel culture have just totally frozen communication where people are afraid to say what they're trying to say.
Wow, this sounds like Burleson, except that we do have people who get up and take up time during a city council meeting over Facebook drama and high school mentality type of stuff that doesn't belong in this location. Do you experience that in Cleburne too?
No.
Okay.
Like I said, it's incredibly compacted.
Lucky.
And again, it's pre-scripted, and so people don't have much time to to be able to say what their concerns are.
So and again, I'm trying to get more familiar with how Cleburne works and with their city council meetings. Are there executive sessions held in the beginning of the meeting or at the end?
It's a mix. Sometimes they'll break when something comes up, and then they'll come back, and so it just pops up.
So, when you're talking about this, the scripted how things work at a city council meeting, it's very typical across the board, Open Meetings Act or the Open Meeting Act, and they all follow basically the same rules. Some follow them better than others, I would say that, and some just try and skirt around whatever they can. But for people who are listening who live in Cleburne, if you do want to voice your opinion, you take out a speaker card in the beginning of the meeting. You get 3 minutes to speak on something that you want. So it's always my best advice in that is to pre-type it up so you can read it and you know what you want to say. You can, if you need longer to talk, you can actually ask for longer, and the mayor can grant you longer to speak. They can say, yes, I understand your issue. If you go a little over, it's okay. We won't stop you. Right. Keeping mindful of time, because these meetings do run 4 to 5 hours on most occasions. Granted, they're only once a month, unless you have a special session. And usually special sessions are a lot faster because they usually encompass 1 or 2, items. So, when you're looking at it from a volunteer position and that once a month meeting, even for the taxpayers, it's well worth your time to spend one evening out of the month, whether it's in chambers or you're watching online for a live session. And, I was talking about this on our last show with those guests, because I'm the mom at the baseball game sometimes with one earbud in, screaming for my son, and at the same time listening to a city council meeting, so I can stay informed. sometimes the lives are way more. There's just something about watching it live.
It's like
And you're
NASCAR. Is
laughing.
that what you're saying? Like
Yeah,
NASCAR.
kind of
You're
sometimes.
waiting for the crash.
Yeah, you're like, okay, what's going to happen here? Who's going to get up and take a speaker card out and say something that's completely inappropriate for what's happening in the moment? Or who's going to get up and bring something up that makes everybody up on the council cringe because they don't want to address the problem?
Been there, done that.
Okay. And, I think, there's lots of times that city council, and I don't, you have to tell me if you've experienced this, that city council members, they don't want to respond. Some do respond when they shouldn't respond, and they respond with information that's not factual, which is the only thing that they can do is speak to a non-agenda item and answer it with facts. Are you getting those answers when you have asked them?
It's been mixed. It's been mixed. The few encounters that I've had, I've gotten some information. Like I said, I've attended this future land use. They've had many meetings, and I look at the website, or I go to this meeting, and you'll find out what we're talking about. And usually, I kind of want to just say, "Hey, dude, I'm here in front of you. Why don't you tell me the truth?" And one of them, I'll get you get these little spigots of information of other issues. Like one of them was that there are certain parts of the city that before 1999 codes weren't enforced. So you have a lot of people there that pretty much did what they want to on their property, and because local government, the city, the county came and taxed them, they're kind of grandfathered in. And so you've got single family housing. What was the other one? Retail, medical. I mean, it's just, wow, it runs the gamut. So I think maybe that's why that future land use came out, to try and clean up some of it. But wow, I mean, you just, okay, now you've just, gave me more stuff to research.
So you definitely seem very frustrated with the situation, the lack of transparency or lack of communication within your district. How will you fix that challenge?
On the if and when, yes. To me, it's going to be for me to communicate. I mean, over communicate if I have to. Get on, the city website, say, hey, this is what's happening. I made these decisions, and this is how I expect it to pan out. Just doing that in itself helps out a lot. Doing a lot of outreach, just have meetings with any and everybody that has a stake in District 4.
So in your district right now, in communicating with residents and with voters, what are you finding to be their greatest complaint and challenge with their district? And I don't want to, I'm not trying to pick on, or I'm not picking on Warren, Mr. Warren, because he is the current city councilman and has been for over 20 years. So that to me says that if there's a lot going on in your district that's creating complaints, where's the challenge lie? What are residents telling you?
We go back to returning phone calls, answering emails. A lot of it is development. Like I said, previous to, there's sections of streets that are still unpaved. They want to see more and more. They've got this part of a creek that could be developed into a nice park. A lot of people have mentioned that, and when I talk to them, hey, have you followed up? And no, it's gone nowhere. So I don't know. Again, with Mr. Warren, what his philosophy is, what his vision or whatever, because he hasn't communicated. I mean, there's no website, there's nothing other than his biography on the city page. I've never seen him hold a meeting outside of the city, and that creates problems.
So he's not holding any town halls within his district.
Not
in 20 years. Would you say? Has he ever held a town hall?
I mean, I can't speak for 20 years, 22 years ago when he started, when he was 68. But recently, no, ma'am.
So he's 80. He's roughly 88 years old. Is that right?
Yeah. It finally came out. I guess a lot of people didn't know, but he's about 88. Yes, ma'am.
That's a long time. So has he talked at all about, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a chance to have Mr. Warren.
We have reached out.
Yeah, and he has not responded
Right.
yet. Because I'd love to hear from him that, why at 88 years old would he want to run for city council again after already serving for over 20 years? Has anyone ever gotten that answer?
That I know of, no. And when you don't have communications, people have their own, and sometimes, like you've seen, their mind goes wild. Is he looking out for the constituents, or does he have his own agenda? He's looking out for his best interest? It runs a gamut.
And you're not making any accusations.
No. This is all.
It's just it's questions.
And again, when you don't communicate, that you don't know. And
Right.
again, people, their imaginations run.
Well, if people have, let's talk about transparency and communication right now. We've got a little over a minute left with you. If voters have any questions for you for District 4 in Cleburne, if they have questions for you or concerns, things that they want to bring to the table, how can they get in touch with you right now to ask you those questions?
Through Facebook, I've put out many cards with my name on it, my phone number. And a lot of people know where I live. So here I am. Ask me the questions.
Well, what's that number that they can call for those that are tuning in right now?
It's 817-784-5716. That's me.
5716. All right. So if you have any questions for Frank running for or concerns as a voter, things that you want to understand as to why he's running and what his goals are, should he be elected into City Council District 4, call 817-784-5716, or you can find Frank on Facebook. His personal Facebook is, do you know what your personal Facebook is?
No, but you can find it under
Wait.
Frank, Huero.
Yeah.
Also, my personal email is aguf42@yahoo.
AG2F.
No, you.
Sorry.
You.
Okay. It's not letting me type anything in there right now. So,
Uh-oh.
but maybe I'll let you. We'll add them to the links. If you're watching on any social, it will be in the comments, and you can click and directly email Frank with any questions or give him a call at the number that we gave you. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back after the break with our next candidate. Good luck.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
Out of deck carpet giving you the blues? Tired of your old dingy and broken tile? Let my friends at the Floor Store in Cleburne, Texas give your home the makeover it deserves. This is Old Taco Joe coming to you for the Floor Store. Whether it's carpet, tile, wood flooring, or real wood laminate, the Floor Store can cover all of your flooring needs. Located at 405 West Henderson Street in Cleburne, Texas, owner Brent Harris can help. Shower tile, tub surrounds, even backsplashes. Give them a call today at 817-641-9444. The Floor Store, they got you covered. When you're hungry for tender brisket or some delicious homemade cobbler, then look no further than Leach Brothers Barbecue, located at 1106 East Henderson, Cleburne, Texas. Leach Brothers has been family owned and operated since 1950. For me, Taco Joe Orwinski, Todd and his family have been filling my belly breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a long time. Heck, I even have my own booth, open Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Come see them for dine-in, carry-out, and all your catering needs.
JoCo Community Radio. Listen live at tunein.com.
Oh, I went to the wrong one here. Welcome back to the second half of JoCo Business Connections here on JoCo Community Radio. This is an election edition as we're taking the opportunity to really fit in all the candidates before the elections come up here in Johnson County. JoCo Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 365 on the TuneIn Radio Network. To listen or watch, simply go to tuneinjoco.com to choose where and how. You can now get the JoCo Community Radio app for free on Android and Apple devices simply by searching your store for JoCo Community Radio. Check out our lineup and more on jococommunityradio.com. This episode and more brought to you by Patriot Claims, making your insurance work for you. Storms happen, hail happens. You got to have someone ready to help you advocate with your own insurance company because 99% of the time they do not want to pay the full amount of the claim. So reach out to your local sales rep, none other than Nona Reed at toll-free 844-TEX-HAIL. That's toll-free 844-839-4245. Get her in your corner before the next storm hits. So welcome back. I'm Tiffany Carlin with Nona Reed here on JoCo Business Connections, the election edition, with another candidate joining us at the table. Please welcome Ginger Galban. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Awesome. Ginger, thanks for joining us. She is running for the Cleburne School Board, Place 7.
Yes,
So
correct.
I want to make sure our last candidate who joined us, Frank Aguero, was running for City Council and for Cleburne. And now we are swapping over to Cleburne School District. Welcome, Ginger.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be out today, and I appreciate the opportunity to get to talk. And then, of course, if you're on Facebook Live, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, live on our own app. So be sure to download the JoCo Community Radio app when you leave, because when we don't have live talk shows happening, we are spinning Texas artists all day long. And so you'll want to be a part of the community, right?
The voice of Johnson County.
That is, yes.
I closed your screen. Okay, so you do have. Let's talk about how long have you lived in. Cleburne?
So I've actually lived in Cleburne for 5 years.
For 5 years.
Yes.
Where'd you come from?
I actually was born and raised in the Austin, Pflugerville area. And then obviously made the move and went to Tarleton. So I'm a former Texan.
Woo-hoo!
So then
too.
moved to Stephenville. Yeah. So bleed purple, moved to Stephenville, and then has kind of always stayed in the area after that. I came from, worked in the Head Start community. And so I actually was a director of education there and was in Weatherford prior to coming to Cleburne. So always kind of lived in the rural area, from Corsicana all the way to Weatherford back to Cleburne. So now I call Cleburne home.
All right. So what's your 9 to 5? What's your day job?
So I actually work still with early childhood education. I am a publishing national sales account representative. So I actually work with birth through 5, actually go into school districts. So work with school districts, work with local Head Starts, work with any local early childhood facilities. And so we actually work with them on building quality education in their classroom. So we have a product that is a curriculum that teachers can use in the classroom.
So you've got the education, you have education behind you.
Yes.
So where did this passion come from? Where'd your passion come from to be in education in some one form or fashion?
Yeah. So great question. So really what honestly brought me to wanting to be so passionate with education is I came from that world. So I call it, like people say, like we bleed purple. I also bleed green. I'm a former 4-H kid. So love that. Livestock has always been a joy, but early childhood actually started from my mom. It started going to listening to keynotes. She was an early childhood educator in the Austin area. And so just having that passion and always talking with her. And so one of the things is I decided to why not now? I mean, we need to change. We see that Cleburne's growing. Just alone looking at pre-K, we've tripled our numbers in pre-K classrooms. So the growth is happening. And so I really want to be able to carry over that passion of education and knowing like I've been in the classroom, so I've been a teacher. I understand that. So it's not just also the community of parents, but our stakeholders are also our teachers. They are the ones they're the front line every day of that field. So I think it's really important to listen to our teachers when it comes to being in those classrooms and understanding why they make our district.
Do you feel that that's something that's been missing in the Cleburne School District?
I do think a part of it, yes, is because I feel like teachers and also parents need to see themselves within the community. One thing that I've always preached working early childhood is called mirrors and windows. So I want to see myself within that community, but I also want to see outside of it. So I think it's like looking at the board. We want to see something inside of me. I want to see somebody that kind of looks like me or has maybe the same background as me or has my best interest in mind. And so I think, and also too for teachers, we're facing a nationwide crisis of not having enough teachers.
Right.
I go in and now it's not even selling anymore with my company. It's going in and just saying, hey, we're thinking of you. Or here's a care package. We're bringing in stuff to talk to them. And I think that's really important right now to know that teacher retention is so high. So I would like to know, also looking at what are we doing to keep our teachers that have been here and have been on that front line, who have been doing the job and that they keep showing up every day. So we always, I really think that's really important for teachers also as well to look at that.
So you have this opportunity being on the front line because you're working directly with teachers through the outside company that you're with, and I'm assuming, and I'm only assuming, so I'm going to ask that question in assumption that you're hearing challenges from some of these teachers that you're meeting with,
right? You're hearing, challenges of, we're facing a whole different entire generation of kids, right? Where we have some teachers that never taught pre-pandemic. So they've only taught post-pandemic kids. We're seeing kids come in, and I'm not just talking in Cleburne, but I'm saying even outside of globally, because it's important to think what's happening because, right, we see that Cleburne's growing. Johnson County is growing. Look at Burleson, how much it's grown. So Cleburne's now going to be a transit community of looking at that. We're becoming a suburb of Fort Worth. And so thinking about that, like what are parents having to do when they had to do during pandemic? I had to work. So, we're seeing that kids don't have that social skills. They don't have that self-regulation. So it starts there. It starts in our pre-K grades, but then it also transfers over to be able to have future success in those upper grades.
Is the curriculum, have the school districts adjusted the curriculum to empower these teachers with the tools to communicate with the students better post-pandemic?
Yes, I do know that with Cleburne, they have done a really good job of making sure that when it did go, March 13th of 2020, that they did try to enhance those virtual things. It's really hard. So it's still in a rural area, right? Because we have rural, how do we have hotspots? How do we come in? And they did do a really, I will say the district did a very good job at handling that. I think also too, for teachers, I would be guilty to saying that they don't use my curriculum because they do in pre-K. So it actually was one of our adoptions last year with pre-K for Texas. And so I think it's one of those things that we start that foundation of being able to do that. And so I do feel like teachers have individually becoming accommodating. I don't want to speak that I think as a whole, maybe the district is looking at that, but I think individual teachers have made that opportunity to make that connection with children that maybe are facing different crises this time.
Interesting that you talk about having those missing hotspots for internet and that type of thing when you have students that were learning on a virtual level. It is, well, I'm just going to kind of use something that's happening in Dallas right now. Dallas is looking to fix that problem. They actually have a program that is a kind of a beta program in one area of Dallas where they are creating their own internet service and making it available in this entire neighborhood. So they're attaching it to the light posts, and on top of those will be actual Wi-Fi connectors for the neighborhood. And then also they include this isn't necessarily a challenge for Cleburne, this part of it, but gunshot it's a type of camera or microphone that hears gunshots. And so what they're trying to do is be able to tackle two main problems: going through a pandemic with no internet service for these kids who are now virtual. And so talking about that with Cleburne, and there are some areas that are the rural areas that cannot get proper internet service yet. Do you see that the school district is working with the city and the county to fix those problems?
I will say that I haven't personally seen that. So I haven't seen that where, like you said, I call it like a pilot, right? I haven't seen where maybe we pilot a certain area. So I think of like school districts like Santa Fe or like Irving that maybe service those rural kids. I mean, even Girard, they service those rural kids on that Rio Vista line. I haven't personally seen that. I haven't seen that they've given like hotspots or something to be able. I mean, I do know they brought like a bus in to certain middle schools, but if you don't have transportation, right? Cleburne doesn't have transportation. How do we get kids there? And I think we do. And not only that, but we're seeing a lot of, homeschool connections. I mean, that is more important than ever now. I mean, as we know that parents are becoming more actively busy, I mean, we have to have that homeschool connection with what I'm doing at school goes to home. And then also what happens at home, is obviously coming into our schools. So making that connection.
When you talk about the homeschool, does Cleburne ISD have a homeschool program?
Well, I'm talking about like home to school. So if the child's home to
Okay.
school,
Gotcha.
yes. So, if they are, in school, what are they doing at home to also extend that? I mean, we're seeing that, across the nation, and even that we are 2 years behind. We're having a 2-year regression with our children and learning. So I think that's something that as a district, we've got to address.
Are there opportunities, and this is the non-teacher at the table, Nona is a former 20-year educator, still with her teaching certificate, and you are in the education industry, the education industry. And so when you're looking at that as a whole, non-teacher talking here, what are your thoughts on how do we play catch up? Can we play catch up with these kids who are 2 years behind because of this pandemic? And they are 2 years behind. Do you see that your school district is even acknowledging that? Are they acknowledging that our kids are 2 years behind?
I once again, not making any accusations. I feel like personally just seeing it and having a kid in the district, I don't see that. I don't see that they're actually acknowledging that. And even like in the high school, right? I mean, 2 years, you think about it, if they're graduating this year and they're 2 years behind, technically we're on a sophomore level.
Right.
I mean, so what are we doing to enhance these kids to say that they're college ready? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all about school readiness, but now college ready. So I think that's something that I haven't seen, I haven't seen that be forthcoming in information.
I think our state needs to recognize that too, because now they're starting the curriculum of taking the state test again is these kids are, I mean, basically 2 years behind. We really could say all of them are. And now you're wanting them to take, the state test and still be able to graduate. And so our state needs to recognize that too. And it's going to take that state recognizing it with the test, I think, before it would be nice for districts to start recognizing it now. But I think also our state needs to recognize that.
Well, I mean, that's a great question for both of you. I mean, since we're having this conversation about it, is where does the responsibility lie on our school board to be communicating that with our state education leaders?
So I personally feel like it should be us as advocates. We're advocating for that. And that's what I talk about, being able to be a part of that community and be able to be a sense of that. Like, I think sometimes if you do look at our current board, I mean, we don't have a lot of diversity, and that's happening more. I mean, we're seeing a lot of different people move in and out of Cleburne. I mean, even just anywhere.
Right.
But I think that it does. I mean, we're advocates for that. I mean, I know that there's a school board conferences. There was just TASPIT a couple weeks ago. I mean, but listening, actually, I'm a big believer in focus groups and advisory boards. So really looking at that, listening to our teachers and even our parents, some of those ones that are forthcoming, and they are the stakeholders. But I think it really is our job as a school board to advocate that to our TEA, to the state legislation.
State representatives, state board of education representatives. I mean, I've already been talking to some of them, even though some of them are representatives, and just kind of learning what they do and where I could utilize them right sooner or later.
Yeah, I think it's all about networking, right? I
Right.
mean, it's a lot
Mhm.
about networking, and when you do have the kind of education, I call it mindset, it does help you to be able to have those
Right.
uncomfortable conversations, because it's not always comfortable, because you want to know what they're lobbying for and what are they, what is there, but then you also want to keep true to who you are. So I think it's
Right.
sometimes, lobbying that and networking of those situations. I think we have to do overall a better job of that, like you said, going
I
to
think that
states.
a lot of our school board members or trustees have lost what they're there for.
Well, you become complacent.
Yeah.
This is a challenge that I think any elected politician has, and these are elected political
Right.
positions. These are, and I think that's where people get very lost in what is a school board member? What do
Right.
they do? They're a politician.
Mhm.
They have to politic in order to get elected. You're having to politic in order to get elected. And the communicating, the networking, and no matter how we look at it, networking or not, you're getting elected, and you have to unfortunately follow some of those
Mhm.
politicking protocols that happens.
Right.
The challenge that I have seen and experienced is the lack of again, and I might sound like a broken record, but so be it if I am, because this is a major problem across the board. When we do not have term limits, you have people who get comfortable in the position and become complacent. They forget why they ran in the first place. I think sometimes they forget who asked them to run in the first
Yes.
place, right? If you've been serving for over 10 years, who asked you to run and why are you still there?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I mean, we think about companies wise, right?
Mhm.
You get change in an organization. I mean, you probably see that there's change. I mean, then you get, like, I call the fire lit, like, then you get that or that, but you're absolutely right. Like, what are we here for? And that's what I feel like with my background, I'm here for these reasons. And I think it's important that we do, like you said, you do have to play the politic game, and understanding that you have to, it is an elected position. And great that you bring that up. I think that, as anybody who's listening or anything like that, making sure you make a educated vote. I think that's really important, is go back and research, look at those
Yes.
school board minutes. You're going to find some school board minutes that may be questionable. That there has somebody that resigned and then is back on the board, and there was no really reason there was no track history of that. And so I think that that's something too, like, we do get complacent, or I know that person, or I know that. I mean, I'm not from Cleburne, so I will tell anybody that I am not from Johnson County, but I believe in where I live at. And I think it's important to get
Right.
involved in the community. I talked about, I was a former 4-H kid. So any former ag kids, anything like that, I mean, it's to make the best better. And that's what we
Mhm.
should be doing. I mean,
Right.
it starts with that, even any child, and not just certain children in the district.
Make the best better.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, I like it.
And I think that actually
Is that
goes.
your slogan?
Yeah, that is my slogan, actually.
I
Awesome.
like that, and it goes really well with June Bates who's place one city council. She uses the hashtag Better Together,
Mhm.
and I've adopted that now. I'm using that because it's when I'm looking at it as being JoCo Community Radio, I'm looking at it as the county as a whole. We have to be working together with each other because we're all feeding each other, whether the cities want to admit it or not, whether the school districts want to look at each other as in competition.
Right.
They have to take that mindset away and realize that we are all working together to create better communities, which begins with better education.
We're building citizens.
Everything
Right.
begins with education. We're building citizens that you want to stay in the area. You want them to start businesses here. And I say that I like to
And
say
you want them to serve.
you want them to serve. You want them to start their own businesses. We're creating future leaders,
Mhm.
and we cannot do that without better education. Texas is low on the totem pole.
Yeah.
We discussed this on the first hour this morning. We are low on the totem pole, and that's sad. It's really pathetic, actually, where our reading and math, you talk about being 2 years behind. Looking at
Can't
our
imagine
test
where it is.
scores, we're in 30%,
Yep.
25 to 30% is roughly for, I think, overall for the whole state and for each of our districts.
Yeah.
We're behind. Now, granted, those test numbers were pre-pandemic test numbers.
Yeah.
We don't have
And we are one of the lucky states because we do have adoptions. And I don't think people really know that there are textbook adoptions.
Mhm.
And typically sometimes they could be 8 years. I know, like in pre-K we just came off and it's an 8-year adoption. So I think, also thinking about that, looking at health, math, I mean, science, it's so encompassing that, it's everything. It's a whole child approach now. It's no longer back even when I was in school. It's, the child they go to school and then it's the teachers, right? It's a teacher's job. I mean, how many times have you heard that? And then what did pandemic do? It realized that this is what teachers do every day because that's your child. Now they have homework to do. Now they have all this, stuff to do in a rigor. And I think that it's important to know that, but I think it's a whole child approach. And I really feel like Texas is very lucky that we have adoptions in curriculum. With other states, they're like, oh, you can pick anything you use as long as it aligns to our standards. So I think that that's also part of being a school board trustee. Like we should be advocating for that.
But how do we fix some of that problem? You brought up a really great point. We have to think about the what. I hate to what if down, but we have to think about the what ifs in a post-pandemic scenario, in a post-pandemic world. What if we have another pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
How do we prepare the parents to step into these roles again? How do we prepare parents now to be able to assist with homework when we've changed the way we teach standard math?
Mm-hmm.
We're now trying to teach shortcuts to math versus teaching actual math. And there is no shortcut to math. That's not the way that they're going to be doing math. We're not teaching that for college curriculum because when you get to college curriculum, you're not doing shortcuts. I don't know anybody who's ever done this, and I'm going to call it stupid because I do think it's absolutely stupid. It's made every parent feel stupid when their kid comes home and goes, no, we don't just divide and multiply. We now can do it.
You got the same answer I did, Mom. I can't do it that way.
Right. And so you can't properly help your child. So what do we do? How do we get around that?
So I think it just comes from definitely, advocating. I mean, I think one thing is that we need to really take a part of these parent nights. And parent nights aren't just, we come in and we share what we're doing, but also, taking that and training these parents. I mean, we have to look at that. It's like training a task force and a workforce. We need to look at how are these parents getting the information, and are they even getting the information? I mean, that's also a big thing. Like, are they getting it? Because sometimes, they don't have email, they don't have, certain stuff. So how are they getting that? But then when they're coming in, making it on these parent nights and actual interactive and showing them how they teach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm like you could teach me math all day long, but I go home and I'm like, the teacher's not here. So who am I? Can I do it? And I think that's something that we struggle with. And that you said we're getting frustrated because I can't do the journal math anymore.
Right.
That's just, and it's not anything against my education. It's just, it's different. It's changed. And I think, I laugh, but you said, we're LinkedIn Live, we're everything on live, we're all live on socials, but now we're relying on TikTok to teach us because they're teaching those shortcuts. I mean,
I asked the question at what point did we get to that we felt a need to teach our children math in a non-mathematical, because I look at it as non-mathematical because I think it's some sort of shortcut that really, if you don't know how to do it, and if you started out learning math in elementary school in the standard way that we've all done math, and then all of a sudden they change it on you, where did that happen? Where did somebody decide, hey, we can teach this in a completely different way? And screw all the parents up.
No, right?
Oh, and the
teach you that
teachers.
fourth grade math because I have no idea how to do it.
Right. I'm looking at it going, why?
Boy, do I feel stupid.
I did, right?
Yeah.
I felt very stupid multiple times.
Yeah, I think that it starts, as you said, it starts obviously being able to, I think you made a good point, at that pre-K and kindergarten age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got to bring these parents in because we're hoping they're in our district for a long time. And even if they're not, they're going to go on to another district. They may go on to Joshua. They may go on to Godly or another Johnson County school.
Right.
And so I think it's important that we start there. We have to start training our parents as well as we're also teaching our kids.
So what are you hearing out in the district as you've been campaigning?
Mm-hmm.
And talking with other parents? What challenges are you hearing from those parents that they want to see some change on the school board?
One of the things I want to say is the voices aren't heard. I think we're seeing that, voices aren't heard. And they're almost, how many people actually go to a school board meeting? How many people know to bring that, and they don't know to do that. And I think we follow on this level of chain of command. Like we go to the teacher first, then we go to the principal, but where do I go after that if my voice still isn't heard? And I think what I'm hearing is as a district, we need to do a better job to realize that the board is really the liaison. I mean, is the liaison between the superintendent, the teachers. They are, guiding that roadmap. But they need to be able to hear their voices. And it's voices of everybody. I strike that it's voices of everybody. I'm a big believer in sports, guys. If you're hearing me, I promise you. But voices of, where is our agriculture? We're building those leadership skills in FFA. They're going to leadership events. They're going to public speaking.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting their own business.
Oh, yeah, they're starting. I mean, they're having animal projects.
Yeah,
I mean, they knowing how to balance a checkbook. I mean, we don't.
Probably more
right,
successful
right.
in
Well,
FFA.
When you
and then band, fine arts. I mean, where are we doing
Mhm.
for fine arts? I mean,
I just got an email from Maximus is my fifth grader, my sixth grader. Sorry. Oh God, he'd kill me. My sixth grader. And I got an email from his math teacher one day on balancing a checkbook. One day.
Yep.
That this is an entire
Yeah.
semester. Oh, okay. And you can take financial prep or whatever is Mavericks in one of those classes right now in high school, but it's an elective. And the reality is these are life skills that need to be taught in school.
Right.
Because unfortunately, you cannot think that every parent is skilled enough or they just
Because
ignore
they weren't taught
using
either, and so they're
Right, they're not using the
struggling
tools.
themselves.
Right.
exactly.
They're not using the tools. So that should be the parents. Yeah, it should be the parents. But if the parents weren't educated in it, we've got to go somewhere else because, again, like you said, we are building future leaders. We want them to stay here. We had this conversation yesterday talking about the school bond issue in Joshua. We had the conversation, I think, on the first hour too. We have to build, we have to learn how to build team leadership through not just sports.
Yep.
Because sports, they go on to be the 1%.
Right.
That goes on to actually be a successful pro athlete. I think it's 1 to 4%. I think is the number depending on the sport. So we have to focus on the curriculum. We have to. I love that you talked about. It's the higher everything that we've got to start focusing on with our kids. So I want to make sure that everybody knows how to get a hold of you with any questions or comments that they have for your Ginger. How can they find you?
Yeah, so you can actually find me on Facebook under Ginger Galban. You can also email me. So my email is gingergalban@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out. I do have a website. If you type in gingergalban.wix, it will show up. You can actually go to my Facebook page and see that. So please feel free to reach out to me. I will be out in the community. I am campaigning out in the community right now.
We wish you the best of luck.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
here
thank
at
y'all
the
for having
table.
me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have an amazing day, guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, JoCo Community Radio. At Romika Designs, we're more than just a laser engraving and specialty design company, much more. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs, and if you can dream it, we can probably make it. We can custom laser cut and engrave on nearly all material. Great for one-of-a-kind gifts, home decor, business and specialty items, or personalized and logo designs created just for you or your company. Allow us to become your go-to gift and specialty project partner. Romika Designs can help make your ideas a reality. We're ready to help you design and create that special gift for any occasion or engrave your personal or